Over the past 4 weeks, I've done quite a few videos about DaVinci Resolve. Some of you might be wondering if I'm making the switch from Premiere Pro to DaVinci Resolve. The answer is no. I'm doing the DaVinci Resolve videos because DaVinci Resolve is free. I figure some of my viewers and subscribers might be interested in that particular nonlinear editing system. If the Edius software was free, I'd be doing videos about the Edius software as well. I don't have a dog in the fight when it comes to non-linear editing systems. If you like Final Cut Pro 10, use Final Cut Pro 10. If you like DaVinci Resolve, use DaVinci Resolve. I did my benchmark videos between Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve to show people what you can expect in case you do want to use Premiere Pro or DaVinci Resolve. In some of the benchmarks, Premiere Pro had a lead, and in some of the other benchmarks, DaVinci Resolve had a lead. That'd be the case if we threw Final Cut Pro into the mix. I don't doubt Final Cut Pro 10 can play back ProRes video files more proficient than Premiere Pro, but Premiere Pro might play back the Red 1 R3D files better than Final Cut Pro 10. Final Cut Pro 10, DaVinci Resolve, and Premiere Pro can all play back 4K video files fairly easy if you've got an 8-core CPU. If you've got a quad-core CPU, maybe you would have to drop down to half or quarter resolution in order to do a picture-in-picture. One thing that made my video a little bit different than all the other benchmark videos is that I did show Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve both playing back a picture-in-picture. I think it's important to see how the CPU and GPU are handling multiple layers of video, whether it's R3D files or H.264 video files. I also wanted to do the picture-in-picture so that people could see the different scaling methods used between the non-linear editing systems. Who cares if your non-linear editing system can play back 12 layers of 4K ProRes if the image is really super pixelated? I've seen videos on YouTube of people with $12,000 Mac Pros using Premiere Pro and claiming they can't even play back one layer of 4K using Premiere Pro without dropping down to half or even quarter resolution. All I can say is that that particular person does not have Premiere Pro set up correctly. There are a lot of people that want to do benchmark videos between Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro 10. Some of those people doing those videos want to do their best to make Premiere Pro look horrible and at the same time make Final Cut Pro 10 look like the greatest non-linear editing system ever created. I say that because there's a certain YouTuber who every video they show both Premiere Pro and Final Cut Pro 10 rendering out the image stabilization filter. Everybody knows Premiere Pro takes longer than Final Cut Pro 10 to render the image stabilization filter, but most Final Cut Pro 10 users would admit Premiere Pro has a better end result. Probably less than 5% of the video content you see on TV requires an image stabilization filter. I imagine less than 5% of the content you see on YouTube requires an image stabilization filter. So one would have to ask, why do they keep constantly using that as part of the benchmark? It would be much better to do a more realistic benchmark. Have two video clips that are color corrected, apply a simple transition between them, and then after that, have the non-linear editing system play back a picture-picture. Like I said, that way we can see the rasterizing technique that's used on the different non-linear editing systems. We can also see the CPU and GPU usage. There is really no reason to use chroma key filters or image stabilization filters when you're benchmarking different non-linear editing systems. Using simple color correction, dissolves, picture-in-picture, that is much more realistic of what a video editor might encounter when they're doing video editing. My commentary when I was benchmarking Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve was that with both Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve, no matter what 4K video codec I was testing out, both Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve could at least do a picture-in-picture with color correction at full resolution. And in my opinion, that means they're both pretty good. There's no need to badmouth one or the other. I want to end this video by stating, don't let other people influence your choice of non-linear editing system. Hypothetically, if an Avid user claimed they used Avid because it had better closed captioning than the other nonlinear editing systems, if you don't use closed captioning, there's no reason for you to choose Avid because of that feature. In other words, choose your nonlinear editing system based on your workflow, not somebody else's workflow. That being said, I will do more tutorials for Final Cut Pro 10, DaVinci Resolve, and Premiere Pro, and I will try to do a few more benchmarks throughout the next couple months between the different software programs.